Hello, everyone. I'm going to try to do this with minimal editing. This is going to be another high poly to low poly tutorial. This one's going to include textures. So my last one, I used a simple green texture, and it's good, but yeah. So what I did was I created a little Meshy AI elf, and here he is, and he's holding a little, I don't know, little candy thing or whatever. Okay, so if I turn on the textures, you could see he's pretty well textured, but he's not perfect. He's got, there's some problems with his face here and up in the ears. But here's what we're looking at. We're looking at 290 something thousand versus 500,000 faces. And if we look at the geometry, oof, it is it's not good. There's no flow. Of course, it's from Meshy, right? I'm not an expert in 3D modeling or anything like that, so I couldn't tell you how to rework this for proper flow if you wanted to animate it. Um, there's plenty of tutorials out on YouTube to do that. What this is about getting a static asset from this high poly down to something that is going to be a lot lower, right? Um, in my old tutorial, I used Decimate, and we're still going to use Decimate. But here's the problem with Decimate. This may go long because of this, but here's the problem with Decimate. If I decimate this down to like, I don't know, point two or point, yeah, point two is fine, right? You'll see that the vertex count will drop down to 100,000, or face count from 500,000 down to 100,000, which is great. But then if I apply that decimation, right, we're going to see that there's going to be holes in the model. Well, maybe I didn't take it down far enough. Let me unapply it. And I'm going to take it down to, I don't know, zero point zero 0.05. There you go. That'll definitely bring me down to 26,000 faces. And now we can see the holes, right? Holes all over the place. He looks like Chucky from the movie. But anyway, and if that's what you're going for, hey, go ahead and do it. But the holes are not going to be liked by any 3D renderer, especially like Horizon. It does not like these holes. So what we're going to do is, in order to get rid of those holes, is we're going to re-topologize this out to just have square topology instead of this crazy, instead of these crazy triangles like this. Well, this is these crazy triangles are meshes, and then watch when I apply my um, when I get back out of it. If it gets back out of it, I just killed my computer. Okay, if I apply this now in object mode, and then we look at what got applied, we could see, oh, it's just god awful triangles just pulled in. And this is why these holes happen, because it can't, it's like trying to figure out making this with that, and they've got a different number of edges that connect. So it really just rips it apart. So what we're going to do is we're going to trash that. We'll come out here. We'll just delete that. We'll re-import him. Import, import, GLTF. I wish it would just stay on like where. Well, yeah, it does. Okay, so now instead of doing the decimate modifier, first thing we're going to do is we're going to deform him or regenerate, and we're going to do remesh. But even before we do that, what we need to do is make a copy of him. So we're going to hit Shift D to make the copy, and then we're just going to hit Escape, which will drop it right back on top. So now we have two copies up here, and we're going to take this top copy and we're going to say that this is going to be our low poly one. So we'll just call it low poly, right? All right. So now if we take the low poly one and we turn off the high poly one and we focus on this guy, we're going to now do that remesh, generate remesh, right? And it's going to look terrible, right? Because what we're doing is we're creating a bunch of tiny, tiny cubes. or cubes, and we're telling it to wrap the mesh on those cubes. The smaller those cubes are, the better it's going to look. So if we sit here and make this smaller and smaller and smaller, we'll start to see our little guy come into shape, right? And there it is at 0.19, uh, 16 thousandths, 15 thousandths. And you notice that the number of vertices down the bottom is changing. We're up to 37,000 vertices. And we can get him just as detailed as he was before, um, if we wanted to. So we're going to go down to probably like 2,000. Yeah, he's got 700,000 vertices now. That doesn't matter right now because we're going to knock this back down. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that all of the details for him are there, especially like this thing. I didn't want to lose this thing. And in our other way of doing it with just decimate, we lose that. So we can go to like point, yeah, 2,000ths is good, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that. Of course, my computer don't like me. There we go. Okay. Oh, because I hit it once more to go to 1,000. Okay. So we're going to go to point 0.002. So 2,000ths. Because that brought it up to 1.7 million vertices. Wow. I don't want it to go that high. Once it gets done doing this, oh, 1.7 mil is at 2,000ths. Okay. We'll just apply that, right? And now when we look at the geometry, it's no longer going to be these crazy, crazy triangles. It's going to be a little bit smoother and more cool looking, right? So now when we decimate it, it's going to follow this pattern instead of that crazy triangle pattern. And because all of these are nice voxel squares, it's not going to have any lineup problems. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to generate and decimate. And I'm going to bring it down to 0.05, which is where I had it last time in my last thing. And if we look at it in object mode, I'm going back into object mode. It's going to take a second for it to think about all this. And remember, when you're in edit mode, you can't apply any operators. So you have to come back up into object mode to apply the operator. So I got decimate, I got it down at 0.5. It says it's brought the face count down to 172,000, which is nice. I'm going to apply that right now, and then I'm going to decimate it again because I want to go lower. I want to get this thing down to like, I don't know, if I can get under 10,000, I'll be happy. So I'm applying it. You're going to notice it'll go from smooth looking to very chunky. Well, not very chunky, but chunkier. And now we're going to apply that decimate again. I'm going to say decimate. And I'm going to basically bring it down to, I don't know, let's say 0.3. Point. Now we'll try 0.05 again. And that brings it to 8,000. And look at that. He's still got the detail on the little flower that he's holding, or little icicle thing that he's holding. I am very happy with this. It looks so much better than just a straight decimation, and it's got that crystalline look to it, right? So I'm going to apply that, and we're down at 8,000, 4,000 vertices and 8,000 faces. What? All right, so now we got to make this look good because I do kind of like the low poly look. But now if we take a look at it in like, if we look at it in the shading view, and we select the image 0, sorry, this is from my other thing, image 01. No, let's go with oh no, wait, hold on, we got image 0. I'm gonna hit control space here, which pops this up. Okay, this is how Meshy gives you the texture. It kind of looks like Christmas wrapping, right? It's all over the place. You can't see where his face is. You can't, yeah. So we're gonna fix that too. Um, in order to fix that, I'm gonna hit Control Space again to go back down to this view. We're gonna take a look at this, and on our low poly one, we don't need any of this material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the material tab over here, and I'm just going to hit the minus key to get rid of the material. And now he's got no material on him again. And I'm going to center him out. Okay, so he has no material on him. I can right click and shade smooth on him. He'll kind of look a little bit better, I think. But I don't know. I kind of like the tessellated look. Anyway, so now that we have him in this state, we need to generate a new image here for his what we're going to basically put the new baked texture onto. And I'm just going to call it bake temp, right? So I'm gonna basically say over here. Let me just pull this out a little bit. I got to go back to UV editing, and then I'm going to say new image, and I'm going to say 1024 by 1024, and I'm going to call it bake temp, right? So I'm going to call it bake temp because we're going to use this not only to create the ambient occlusion map for them, but we're also going to use it to put a new texture. We're going to take the texture from the old model and bake it onto a new texture onto this UV set. Because if we look at this right now, and let me just scroll this over and turn this onto here. If we look at this, it's using no map. But if I tell it, let me see it um, with this material on it, right? So I'm going to basically just say put that material on it. You could see it's all one color because if I go in here and I select everything, it's not there. But if I do an unwrap on this, if I say U for UV unwrap, and then I say Smart Project, and I tell it that I want an island margin of 0.001 or 1,000th, right? And I tell it 66, that's all good, and I hit unwrap. Now, you could see that when let me put this back down to the black texture, you can now see that it looks a little bit more like an atlas map for I think. One thing you want to do when you're unwrapping also is you see all these little tiny thing. This is a 1024 by 1024 map. So in other words, the things that are bigger here, the vertices that are bigger can have more visual information in them. So if you don't like this map like this, there's a lot of people that do like they come over here and then they look at the front view, they'll just look at the front view and then they'll do a UV unwrap and they'll project um, just straight off of here. It'll do like uh, where is, oh, project from view. So if I do select all and then UV unwrap and then project from view, you'll see now it looks like him. And yeah, it's kind of cool, but I don't know. You could play around with different unwraps. Personally, I just like doing a smart UV unwrap, but I'm sure that you could do like cube projections or uh, probably a spherical projection. But you see that goes outside the bounds. So, so yeah, just use the smart UV unwrap. There are better ways, and you can really play with it if you wanted to mark seams down on this thing, and like you could like mark a seam all the way down one side, mark a seam down the other side, and unwrap it it'll look like a doll over here, and that's probably actually the best way to do it. But here's the thing: this is what this new UV map looks like with the old material on it, right? So it is kind of horrendous. So I'm going to get rid of the old material from it. I'm going to create a new material. And that material is going to be called, we'll call this elf, right? Cool. and that's the name of our material now. And that's what we're going to bake onto is that material. So we're going to use this bake temp. So in order to do that, we're going to go back over to our shading. We're going to make sure we have him selected. And you see now, since he has this material on it, it's just this principled. So I'm going to get rid of the principle because we're not using that. And it's going to remove it from there. Don't panic. I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to go to Input, and I'm going to say Texture, Texture, and Image Texture. And I'm going to plop it right there. And then I'm just going to set it to the bake temp that we created earlier. So it stayed black because our bake temp is black. If we look over here at bake temp, it is black, right? But this is what we're going to bake to. And then we're going to drag the color over to the surface. Again, stays black because we have nothing there. But here's where the magic happens. We take this here and we go to Mesh 2. And well, before we do that, we got to set up our properties for the bake. So baking is only done under cycles. So by default, the render engine is set to Eevee. You could drop that down and go to cycles. When you get to cycles, you scroll down till you get to bake. And then you'll scroll down again, and you'll see that bake has all these cool options. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change it from combined to diffuse. And then I'm going to turn off direct, and I'm going to turn off indirect. So I just want the color information. I don't want any lighting information whatsoever to be baked. Then I'm going to check select it to active. I'm going to go into here and I'm going to set the extrusion to point. We'll start with 0.1 and I'll explain exactly what that's going to do in a second. But we'll start with 0.1 and then we'll adjust it from there depending on how our model is behaving. We're looking over here, we're seeing both of our models at the same time again because I've got them both turned on and they have to be sitting right on top of each other for this bake to happen. So we have diffuse set. So now we've got to do a little bit of setup on the old model, on the high poly model. So I'm going to take the high poly model. And if we notice in here on our shader, we've got a few things. We've got a base color, and I'm going to hit control space on this so we could look at this in large. Okay, so we've got a base color over here being pulled in, and that's going to come in off of our image map, which is the meshy one that's all kinds of crazy, right? And then we've got metallic, roughness, and normal maps coming in. We don't need the normal map, we don't need the roughness map, and we don't need the metallic map. We don't want to bake any of those. If we do, it'll combine them all into this, and then we'll get a very dark model or a very dark texture on the other end of it. So okay, so now let's go back to the control space. And now we're ready to try this bake for the first time. So what we're going to do is we're going to say mesh, and we're going to say low poly, and we've got it. What I did here is I clicked on the mesh first, hold down control. You see I'm holding the control key, and then click the low poly model. They both have to be visible. Then you come down to bake, and you make sure that this is selected. Very important that the bake temp is selected, and then you click bake, and it'll take the image uh, from the higher poly model, and it'll bake it. And now we can see our bake temp has a map on it, and it actually kind of looks like an atlas. We could see his face, his eyes, um, a weird part of his neck or hat, or yeah. Anyway, if we had done that paper doll seaming, we'd see that this would look actually look more like a flattened out version of the elf. But that's fine. But take a look at this. We've got an elf. And if I turn off the other elf, this is our new low poly elf, right? So check this out. He is low poly, right? And he kind of looks okay. Now, you see how it's got this here? Because when you're projecting, when you're baking from one to the other, what it does is it makes a slightly, well, it doesn't make a slightly larger. It makes an exact same sized copy, and it's like it's projecting. You got to think of your old model, your high poly model, is like being made of glass, and there's light coming in from all sides, and wherever that light lands, that's what it gets. So by moving ourselves out point 0.1 up on like the hairline, we're actually getting a projection because it's the projections colliding with this. So we're getting these projected on each other. So that's where I said we had to, I don't hit control space again to get back down. We have to play with this point 0.1. We might want to go 0.05 and then try baking it. Again, we turn our other model back on, click it, control click, hit bake, and it'll automatically update this. And there, it's done. And now we can look and we can see, is it better? And it's a little bit better. It's a little bit better. We're getting there. We're sneaking up on it. So now we could try it at 0. I don't know if it's going to work at 0. If so, then some models, when you put them at 0, it gets the back face because it's not. You got to remember, when we turn these on to each other, you see how they're fighting. They're Z fighting each other because the higher model has more detail. And if you put it at 0, then basically it may not work. But we'll try it. We're going to try 0. Maybe this whole time I've been a fool. So we'll see if 0 works. Okay, we've got our new thing, and 0 does not work. That's why you don't use 0. Wow. Okay, so we do need to give it something. So let's try 1,000. 2,000 seems to be my go-to, but we'll try 1,000th out and see what happens. 1,000th of a meter. See if that's enough. It might give us some weird artifacts, like it was 0 in some places, but we'll see. We could look over here at this model when it's done. You'll see. Um, is it done already? Did that? It made it a little bit better. Still not good though. Okay. Control click that, and we'll keep sneaking up on it. Instead of 1, we'll say we'll go to 1/100th and see if that does it. Oh yeah, cleaned it up a lot. And now let's see. Oh, the hairline looks good. There's still a little shadow right there. You could play around with this to your heart's content till you get something that you like. But I'm gonna say I like that. I'm gonna say that is pretty good for a very low poly version of what we had before, right? Whoops. So control space, and there we go. Okay, so now what to do with this? Now, we're going to save out this FBX, right? So we're going to go to export and say FBX, and then we're going to go to downloads, and I'm going to basically call him ELF. I'll call it ELF1, right? And then I'm going to export FBX, but I'm going to say selected objects only so that it doesn't export the other ELF that we have. And that should be all I really need to do. Export FBX. So now we also need to save this temp bake that we did. So we're going to click on the little hamburger here and go to image and save as. And we're going to save it. Before we save this, though, let's go back to our material that we made. And we called it ELF with a capital E, right? That's the name of the material. So that's important because Horizon's going to want to know that. So we're going to say, we're going to go to our hamburger menu, image, save as, right? And then we're going to go to downloads is fine. And we're going to, instead of calling it bake temp, we're going to call it ELF with a capital E, ELF. And then we're going to say underbar BR. that's going to be what Horizon wants. It wants the name of the material underscore BR for the base color and roughness texture, right? So now that's been saved. What we need to do now is we need to make the ambient occlusion, and the reason for it is let me clear this. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it this way. Um, if you could look at this here, and I turn it back from shade smooth to shade flat, right? This is our model right now. It's not very um, great looking. I mean, it looks great there, right? But it's not very great looking here because it needs the crinkle detail or the occlusion detail from the other guy. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to, this is how it should look, and this is how it looks, and we're going to combine them by rebaking again, but instead of baking the color information this time, and we're just going to set into our bake temp, instead of baking the color information in the bake, we're going to bake the ambient occlusion information, same as my other tutorial did, ambient occlusion. So everything else pretty much stays the same. Our extrusion, we like that, select it to active. We did our control clicking up there, click bake, and now we're going to see a black and white map over here in our temp bake, or bake temp. And that's going to be all of the shadow information for all the cool creases, like up here in the this looks like the fuzzy part of his hat, right? So if we take it now, we go here and we look and we put back on, this is magic now, we put back on the texture. That's the same model, low poly, with just the crinkle texture from the ambient occlusion, just the extra shadow textures. So you can see it's putting detail where there isn't detail. If we go to the back here and we look at his hat, we could see his hair's not that smooth, his hat's not that smooth, but the texture for it makes it look that way. So we're cheating the system here, right? All right, now, but this Horizon doesn't want to see this. This is our, it doesn't know what this is yet. We need to we need to bring this into Horizon as an MEO. MEO stands for metallic, emissive, and occlusion. We only want the occlusion part. Now, what Horizon does when it pulls in the MEO is it has each one of the color channels is set for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this image. I'm going to say save as, and I'm going to change it from BR to MEO, right? Meaning it's going to be our metallic, uh, emissive, and occlusion map. Now, we need to get rid of the the red and the green channels, because red is metallic and green is emissive, and then the blue channel is our O. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say open. We're going to open that black and white file, right? And we're going to go to channels over here, and we're going to select just the red channel, and then we're going to hit Control A, and I'm just going to delete it, make it black. And then I'm going to hit the green channel, I'm going to hit Control A, and I'm going to delete it, make it black. And you can do this in GIMP too if you don't have Photoshop. You'd have to look up exactly how to do channel editing, but now you can see it's just blue, and that's fine. That's what we're going to actually save this as. We're going to say export PNG, and we're just going to export it right on top of our old one. Boom. So now let's see how it looks inside of Horizon. So I'm going to basically say add a new asset, 3D model, choose your file from your device. I'm going to go to downloads. I'm going to select my ELF FBX, my BR file and my MEO file. And I'm going to say open. And it's like, yep, we see the BR, we see the MEO, we see the ELF. Hit import. Bum, bum, ba-da, bum, 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 bum. Okay, it's importing it, it's processing it. If all goes well, we get our little everything's okay. And then we bring our ELF in. And then we focus on them. And we can see our ELF looks amazing. Let's preview from here. He's an ELF. And he looks good. Not bad. And he is only 8,000 faces. Probably knock him down even further. All right. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it wasn't too all over the place. And talk to you soon.